I think the war in Ukraine, as it enters its second year, unfortunately, is going to be a major unknown that a lot of organizations are going to have to get their head around and learn to deal with the uncertainty that it creates. Because as I said, the ripple effects of this conflict continue to spread wider and wider around the world. As we've all seen, and for those of you living in Europe know all too well, Putin has learned how to weaponize winter in a way that no one has before. The Russians have always had a propensity to weaponize winter. It worked with Napoleon. It worked with the Nazis. And now they're trying to bring it to bear, not on just the military conflict at all, but even more so on civilians, not just in Ukraine, but civilians in Germany and Poland and the UK, all over Europe, to try to break the will of the West to resist this invasion. And that's something that we have never seen before at this level. The closest thing that I can think of to this is the Arab oil embargo in the early 1970s. You know, when the OPEC nations decided to cut off oil to the United States to punish us for our support of Israel. And I still remember what that was like. I remember, you know, sitting in the car with my parents waiting for 2 hours to fill up our gas tank every week, and, you know, stuff like that. But that has tremendous potential to disrupt a lot of other things besides people's ability to heat their homes and fuel their automobiles. That's going to make the global supply chain problems worse. It's going to continue to be a drag on the bottom lines of a lot of businesses, making the economic situation worse. And the inflation and the higher heating costs that we're seeing in a lot of the world is going to be a powerful headwind for economic growth and for business growth all over the world.
So what would we advise businesses to do in that situation? They've had a year's awareness of this. It's not going away. So what do you think some of these businesses out there across many sectors could just do as some basic things to kick off 2023 with?
Well, I think the most important thing is to disabuse yourself of the notion that this is a temporary situation. You just got to get through the next quarter or the next half until you get back to normal market conditions. I think that we are entering a period, we've got high interest rates, high energy costs, and a lot of other disruptions that are going to make things very challenging for a lot of people in not just in the poor or the working class, but in the middle class and even upper middle class too. So you need to factor that into your calculus. And, you know, it depends on what industry you're in, but you've got to recognize that people have less disposable income. They've got less tolerance for personal financial risk. And that things that have, I mean, here's a great example that I just read. You know, air travel is now becoming a luxury again. Think about that. Since in this country, at least in the United States, since deregulation in the 1980s, air travel has become something that people of even very modest means do without even thinking. Go to see grandma, go to Disney World, hop on a cheap flight, you know, and fly across country. That's something that's becoming out of reach for a lot of people because air travel is becoming more expensive and people's incomes are going down. So that impacts not just the airlines, but all of the other businesses that are dependent on that, which there are a lot of and may not be immediately obvious. So you need to just have whatever business you're in. My advice is sit down in front of a whiteboard and say, what are all the different ways that this could impact us as a business? What are the different ways that the war could impact us? The supply chain disruption could impact us. The energy costs could impact us, and the reduced purchasing power of people could impact us. And you know, give your team the time that it takes to draw up that list. And here's an important thing: don't censor your team as they're doing this. Don't say, "Oh, that's never going to happen."
Yeah,
there's nothing you can say right now is never going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, because We'd have said that a few years ago and boom, it's happened. Yeah,
Right.
so I think you've got some great advice there. Sit down, analyze what are the top 5, 10 things right now that are happening globally, external to your organization, and just list what the potential impacts are. List what things are going to influence you, how you can influence them. And even if you can't do anything about it, just raising that awareness, just letting your people, letting the organization see that you're looking ahead, seeing that you're planning. Forewarned is forearmed. And then if and when things do manifest, people have been engaged in that planning, in that conversation. They can go, hey, remember that thing we talked about back in January? Or I thought we could do this because it might help us with this sector or with this potential impact. And it's never a wasted discussion. That sort of engagement with your teams, with your people, as you said, get some whiteboards, get some Post-its, good old engagement with a group of people, big room thinking rather than big room planning. And what comes out of that, as you said, don't dismiss the crazy stuff because that's often what's going to come and hit you from the side down range that you weren't aware of. And I think it's such a powerful thing to do, and especially in the times we're in, because people like to be reassured.
Right.
And there's nothing more, as we talked about earlier, having the confidence. If you feel reassured and that you're all aligned and all thinking of what's coming and aware of what's coming, then that fact alone gives you a step off of confidence that wouldn't be there. And if you've got an organization where everybody's unaware, aren't talking, have all got their own thoughts, we know those can take people to very dark places. And the minute people start to feel like that, you've then got a psychological issue amongst your workforce as well as an output issue.
Thank you for tuning in to The Thinking Leader. Check the show notes for more information about the topics covered in this episode. There, you'll also find a link to our free assessment. Click on it right now to find out if you are a red team thinker with a red team culture.